All right, hello everyone. Today we're going to be going through familiarization with the P-39 Air Cobra. I've flown it a few times before in IL-2, but that was mostly just takeoffs, landings, and not really much dogfighting. So we're going to be trying to do dogfighting in IL-2 with the P-39. And so we got to prep and get ourselves ready to figure out how to fight with this aircraft. So as you can see, in the loading screen here, we've got the P-39 Air Cobra. I'll pop us into a mission so we can, actually I'll not pop us into a mission, but I'll go over the specs of the aircraft right now, broad specs before we get into the technical specs. So the P-39 Air Cobra is a pretty unique aircraft because it's got a 37mm autocannon crammed into the nose. And on most aircraft, the nose is where the engine goes, because you want your engine close to your propeller to simplify transmitting power between the two. Instead, the P-39 has a 37mm autocannon there, and the engine is behind the pilot right here. That has some advantages and some disadvantages. Mainly, the center of mass is a bit further back in the P-39 than it is in most other aircraft. And while the engine provides some better armor to the pilot, your engine is more likely to get hit in this aircraft than it normally would be, at least for attacks from behind. For attacks from the front, it's a little less likely to get hit. Then it also has an unconventional, at least for the time, tricycle landing gear. That makes it much easier to take off, land, and taxi because you can see what you're about to run into usually. And then you'll notice it's got these like car automotive doors on it, which means that it's different to get into because you open the door and just walk in instead of climbing into a standard cockpit. It also means that to eject from the aircraft, we have to jettison the door, so we can't do any of our tricks where we open the canopy and we can bail out a bit quicker. And also notice our bailout path is kind of right into the horizontal stabilizers. All right, so then for other armaments, it's got two 30 cal machine guns in each wing, so it's got 4 total. And then in the nose, it's got an additional two 50 cal machine guns. We'll probably be dropping these 30 cal machine guns most of the time because 30 cals aren't particularly effective at this point in World War II. Let's move on to the technical specs. I'll get transition to that display. So first off, this comparison. We're not going to go into super nitty-gritty details in this, but we will compare the P-39 to the MiG-3, and let me get this 109 E7 out of here because we're not going to care too much about that. But we're going to compare mainly these 4 aircraft, maybe the Yak-1 as well. So that's the Bf-109F2, Bf-109F4, which we're encountering recently in our campaign, the MiG-3, and then the P-39L. So first off, we see that you've got some different boost timers. These are parentheses is time in minutes you can do it. So it's got combat, emergency, boost, and the F2. The F4 has just combat and emergency. The MiG-3 has a 10-minute boost, and then the P-39 has a 15-minute mill, 5-minute takeoff, and then max power for 2 minutes. So we have to keep those engine timers in mind in this game, otherwise our engine will go kaput. Then we'll see we've got velocity never exceed in kilometers per hour. 109s are both at 850. MiG-3 was at 750. We've exceeded that once before, and we actually went about 760, 780 or so, and it held together. But the P-39 has an 840, so it's almost got a comparable BNE to the other aircraft. Next is max speed. It's a little faster than the F2, but also a little slower than the F4. So we're about on par with most of our adversaries in this, at least these two adversaries. No, we're actually probably going to be coming up against some later aircraft if we do a campaign today, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it because it's going to be the 109s generally kind of follow a similar template where they get a little faster or marginally faster, and they don't really get all that much better throughout the war. Usually it's just they get better at climbing. So then we can see the climb rate, and this is what I was just talking about. They get better at climbing because they get better engine power, but their wing loading will get higher too, because you can see standard wing load it goes from 173 to 180. So while we're on wing load, our P-39 is a higher wing load than, or sorry, it is a lower wing load, which is better. So it's going to have a heavier wing load than the F2, but a lower than the F4, which means we should be able to outturn some of these aircraft pretty well. Then we can go over to our turn performance, and we can see that at 3,000 meters, we're slower than everything because we've got a 30-second turn rate, and our turn speed is 270. But when we get a bit lower, we can outturn the F2, but not the F4, and we can outturn the MiG-3. So then our climb rates are pretty good at low altitudes. They're not like anything phenomenal, but then they get really bad above 6,000. So this is a low altitude aircraft. The P-39 historically was very hampered by its lack of a multi-stage turbocharger, or supercharger, sorry, it doesn't have a turbocharger. It was intended to have a turbocharger, but it ended up getting dropped because it slowed the aircraft down at lower altitudes due to just drag from the system. All right, so now that we've got that done, we'll go and we'll look in at our flight technicalities, and we'll just do a bit of a comparison so that you guys understand what the difference in pilot load is going to be between the MiG-3. So we don't care about this. I can explain this in game. I'll probably care more about that on the P-39 to refamiliarize myself with what the heck the controls are. But on the MiG-3 engine management, we've got put RPM to full and mixture to full for boost. So engine management, this looks a lot more complicated than it is, but all we really cared about on the MiG-3 was keeping these oil temperatures and water temperatures correct, because we didn't want to burn our oil or start boiling our coolant. And then for our boosted power, which we got 10 minutes of, we would just crank the throttle to full, RPM to full, boost to full, and then we'd have 10 minutes of that. We didn't have to really care about any of these manifold pressures that are listed here. This guide just lists them in case you are not using Techno Chat and you need to know these so that you can tell if you're in boosted mode or not. The E39, on the other hand, engine management gets significantly more complicated. We have to start knowing these RPMs and figuring out what limits we have to operate our aircraft within to maintain our flight timer limits. So we're going to be stuck down for most of our flight with 2,600 RPM and 37 inches of manifold pressure. And I'm going to send this document to my other computer so I can reference it really quick if I need to. I'm going to hide this display capture while I do that. But because it's such an unfamiliar aircraft for me, I need to know the landing specs particularly, and the engine specs. The other thing that really makes this complicated is most aircraft tend to have landing speeds that are fairly similar. So even on this, even on this P-39, we're touching down at about 150 to 160 kilometers an hour, but the dials are all in miles an hour, and I don't know miles an hour for most aircraft because I've primarily flown Russian aircraft, which are all in kilometers an hour, and this is all before everything was standardized as knots. So I'm gonna have to figure all this out as we go, but that's what the familiarization is for. Just a minute or so, and this guide will be up on my other computer. All right, that should be set. I don't know what it's going to show you guys on dials yet because I haven't had the dials program up while I've been doing this. But we're going to pop into a quick mission. We're going to start on the runway so we can do a takeoff. Make sure we've got this down before we try to drop into a campaign. We'll start. We'll go into our P-39 setup, and we will pick our. We have actually a couple custom paint schemes. One of these is just the skin template, so we're ignore that. But I've got a Kotobuki skin. It doesn't have the fancy camouflage paint. It's just one of the default skins with my logos slapped over some of the other symbols to mirror a Kotobuki skin. On this one, I didn't put in the effort to split this symbol on the vertical stabilizer and the rudder. I've done that on some of my later skins, but not this one. The other skin I've got is an annoying bright orange Aldnoah Zero inspired one that I made before I realized skins can't be seen in public servers unless everybody in the server has that skin downloaded. I thought being the bright, obnoxious orange plane would be a fun time. Photo, I don't know if the photo is set up on this for our configuration. So we've got some bombs because the VSS or VVS, the Soviet Air Force in World War II strapped bombs to everything. They needed a lot of ground attacker aircraft throughout the war. So anything with a pair of wings that could strap bombs to generally got bomb straps to it. Uh, so we've got our two types of bombs that we can fit. And sorry, I just realized OBS doesn't have my chat dock up. Let me pull that up. All right, now I've got that up. Yeah, so we've got two types of bombs, 100 kilogram bomb and a 250 kilogram bomb. We have the option of additional 30 cal ammo. So we're loading 1,000 rounds per each gun. So if we click that, we see that we've got 4,000 rounds of 30 cal ammo. That's not particularly useful for most of our applications because the 30 cals tend to not really do much. We have the removal of the 30 cal machine guns. That gives us about 30 kilometers an hour. What's more important than that is it's removing 192 kilograms from our wings, which gives us much better roll because we have a lot less mass moment of inertia in our aircraft. Because if you've got two weights and you're holding them out, you're harder to turn than if you've got those removed. So typically when we fly, we'll probably be flying without these unless we find out we want them. There's a special load of 37mm gun ammunition. We're not going to bother. And then there's a radio navigation compass for navigating to fixed beacons. We're not going to use that because we've got the magic radar map. Guns convergence, I'm going to leave at 250 because that's what I've practiced most with. And then we'll start. I got to recenter my head tracking. Now we'll notice in our cockpit there is, our picture did work, which is very nice. We got to have our motivation for what we're fighting for here. But maybe one of the first things you'll notice is that, of course, we are fairly horizontal, which is great because it lets us see what's in front of us pretty well before takeoff. Just lean a bit to the side and we know exactly what we're going to be hitting. Another thing you might notice is we have a mirror. The mirror is very nice because you can we can't exactly see what's behind us with this mirror because we've got this thick, heavy brace above us. But we can just turn around behind us and we can see right behind us, and it's great. And the mirror will tell us if there's something above and behind us, which is also very convenient. Another thing to note is that our gun reticle is different. It is a circle with a dot. Previously, we had a whole big... Oh, that is the sun shield I just put up. But we previously had a whole bunch of circles and lines. And honestly, the Soviet site was a lot better because it gives you a lot more references for angle off. So we're going to be playing it a lot more by the seat of our pants with this reticle. We've got our backup gun sight, which is a circle painted onto our windscreen and then a little indicator. And yes, these actually do work. If our gun sight gets shot out like it did when we were flying that MiG-3 a while back, that might be very, very useful. And you can see airspeed, climb, our glide slope indicator, our slip and glide indicator. Manifold pressure is going to be an important one. You guys will probably not see that too much. I'm sorry, I'm looking over to check what dials you have. So let me explain your dials here while I'm on it. So your dials that you're seeing at the bottom of my bottom of the screen, starting from top left, moving to right, you've got airspeed in miles per hour. You've got an altimeter. I'm gonna have to fly and figure out what the arms in the altimeter mean exactly, because I don't know it offhand. Then you've got the compass. Then you've got a pitch and roll indicator. And you've got your turn and slide indicator. Starting at the bottom left. Then you've got a vertical speed indicator, another kind of compass, and then you've got the engine RPM. So then we can look down here and we've got our bottom left, we've got our fuel. Why the frack is our engine temps in Celsius when everything else is in English measurements? God, that is even more infuriating. But we'll have to play this by ear. We've got some handy dandy marks for our temperatures, which is convenient. I wish we had that on our manifold pressure, because we have to remember that we need 37 inch 37 manifold pressure is our normal. And then our takeoff power is 3,000 RPMs with 51. So let's get the aircraft set for that. This aircraft is also different from most of the Soviet aircraft because if you look down, you can see we've got toe brakes. So we Use those toe brakes very conveniently to steer our aircraft on the ground. So I'm going to adjust our pitch trim. I think about 20% up is probably going to be good. We might die horribly, but we'll find out. We'll drop about 30% flaps, because I don't think this aircraft is going to take off a lot nicer than the others. And then we will get our fuel mixture. So our fuel mixture, we've got emergency full rich, which just throws it to full in case the auto system stops working. Then we've got auto rich, auto lean, and idle cutoff. We're going to go to auto rich. Firmly stomp on our brakes. And let's get our RPM, see where we're at. I'm not adjusting the prop RPM, I am adjusting the fuel mixture by mistake. Alright, this is a bit weird, but let's try to take off. We'll see how it goes. Our nose wheel does not lock in this aircraft. We have to be very careful on our initial run out to stay straight. And I didn't read what our takeoff speed is, but yeah, it'll tell us it's about 100 miles an hour. Let's pull up. Try to throttle back to combat mode so we're not running our engine too hard. Pull the landing gear up. And we'll pull the flaps up. Get a bit of right rudder for this crosswind we're in. And I didn't change any of our radiator settings. So we're going to also learn a bit about our radiator settings. But let's get our aircraft set up for regular flight. Our RPM indicator is 6,000? 0? What gives with that? I don't know. Oh, it's 10,000? Doesn't seem right. Something seems off with this because it's saying that our normal power is down here, way, way low. And then manifold pressure, we gotta be at 37. We're at 40. So we're sitting here at about throttle 75%. Our RPM at about 50%. And these aren't exactly like hard limits that you have to be under both. You have to be, there's like a curve that you have to be under for engine power pretty much between those two. So if your RPM is too high and your manifold pressure is still below what you need to be, you might be above. So let's take a look at our temperatures because we want to try to get the max out of our radiator configurations. So our oil temp is looking pretty good. The water temp is pretty low, so we can close our water radiator more. And we can see right here to the left and right of our control panel, these are, looks to be the back of the 50 cal guns. Now let's arm our guns and just try out what the bindings are. So I've got a big red button, that is the cannon, that is nice. And then all the machine guns are just my trigger. And you can see our spread pattern, so it hits at about 250 meters and then it diverges. In this aircraft, if we strip out those side wing guns, we might not care too much about that at all. Now let's turn around and come in for a landing so we know the landing setup in this aircraft. Where the heck did we even take off from? Assume this grass strip. So we can throttle up into combat mode. These settings. So that's good to know, but how much can we push it and stay in combat modes? Because it might be nice to figure this out, that if we keep our prop RPM at 60%, we stay in combat mode no matter how much we push our throttle. And then we can just throttle back to, what, 75% for continuous mode. That makes trying to increase power a lot simpler. Let's try to look out for that airfield. Don't see it yet. Oh, I think I see it. Looks like some hangars out there. Now, while the P-39 does have kind of good visibility front and back, you'll notice that we've got some pretty bad visibility due to the thick braces around the cockpit. I've been told by VR players that it really isn't too bad in VR because you see around those quite well. But since I don't have VR, we don't see around it. We're overheating our engine. Let's get our... What is overheating? Oh, our coolant is overheating. I was reading this wrong. So our oil radiator can probably stay down at about 40%. Now our landing approach is about 160. Your glide slope is 180 to 210, 110 to 130 miles an hour. I drifted from the airfield, so let's come back around. And if our throttle's at 0, we're going to get this warning. But we're just going to ignore that. Let's drop our landing gear. Let's prepare for a landing. Might not be a very clean landing because I'm going to kind of come in from a weird angle, but this aircraft should allow me to land pretty oddly. Let's drop the flaps, and this aircraft's also nice compared to the MiG because the flaps drop gradually. Let's come in for a landing at this airfield. We're gonna have to come out a little ways first. We're dropping quite a bit in speed to our turn, so we're going to throttle up. We'll boost our RPM, so that way we have emergency power if we need it. We picked up too much speed, so let's throttle back to idle. There, but we don't have to pull up too much. We're gonna hit a little hard, but we didn't bounce. And we'll start hitting the brakes a bit to slow us down. We don't actually have to worry about not hitting my toe brakes too well. But we don't have to worry too much about braking too hard and flipping over the front end of this aircraft because it's got that tricycle landing gear configuration. Alright, so let's finish this mission. We'll switch to some air dogfights in it. So we'll pick the 1 versus 1, 39. We'll start against an F2 because an F2 is going to be something that we could realistically try to outmaneuver. Start. We go into our aircraft setup. This time we're going to leave, this time we're going to leave it as it is, but I'll switch the skin. So make sure everything is armed and ready. He's coming in shooting at us, so let's pull around and try to turn with him. Make sure you're set to auto rich. I have no idea what our radiators are set to, but I think the default radiators are fine from this case. I'm going to try to boost the propeller RPM until we get to emergency mode. Alright, so 75% looks to be about where we need to be to stay in combat mode regime. Alright, so he's going to outturn us because we've been focusing on trying to get engine control set up. But we'll still give this a shot. He's coming up, we're coming down. Might not take a snapshot at us, I guess. Oh yeah, our engine modes are also going to change, they're going to change due to altitude, because our manifold pressure will change as we change our altitudes. Because we've got a turbocharger instead of a supercharger, or a supercharger instead of a turbocharger, sorry. So we throwing ourselves into a spin, but we recovered. Trying to keep my engine out of combat mode, or out of emergency mode. But annoyingly, our engine RPM is varying with our throttle output. And in this game, the Allison V12 engines these aircraft are flying fall apart after like 10 minutes of full power use, even though they'd go for like 150 hours without problems. Now, if we come in on another head-on with this guy, we should be able to win because we've got the bigger gun, and that's usually who wins in the head-on because you can open fire a bit sooner than the other guy. But we're not really getting ourselves into a good position to fight him. Our turning, I know our turning airspeed, and let me quickly convert this. Our turning airspeed is supposed to be about 270 kilometers an hour. I need that in miles per hour for this aircraft. So about 170. So we'll start pulling hard. We'll bleed our speed off with this. We're a hair above 150, so we should be at about our turning airspeed. I think we could pull even harder with this aircraft. It's staying nice and stable. We're finally getting to the buffet, and I'm pulling pretty hard. I need a lot of rudder to also stay coordinated with this hard of a pull. But we are losing a lot of altitude by turning at this because we can't sustain this turn rate forever. And we're still not going to beat him because we're just barely have a better turn rate than him. I put too much rudder, almost threw myself into a spin. This thing is definitely lacking in engine power. I can see why a lot of people don't really like playing it. Speed is too low, so we gotta dive back down. Oh god. Oh god. Oh, we just threw ourselves into a spin. Alright, let's restart this mission. Give it another go, try to take out this 109. pull in a loop, try to get him back with us. I'm not at this point so sure I can outmaneuver an F2 in this aircraft. This is what the familiarization is for. We've not flown this aircraft too much. Oh, he's giving us a nice tail shot. Let's try to line it up. We're a little bit out of our divergence, but we can take some shots. Looks like we're not going to get close enough. We need more engine power, so let's just throw on the boost. We're not like the MiG, we're not very fast, so we can't catch up to him, can we? We can try to cut across his turn circle, but he might just bug out. Yeah, he kind of just stopped turning, which is one of the best things to do against a low yo-yo, which is what I was trying. Like I've said before, the AI is both incredibly stupid and incredibly good at flying. Alright, so we're back in combat mode. I have to keep watch on this engine like a hawk. We're not turning with him, I was distracted, so let's try to stay with him. I'm messing with the prop RPM settings as we're trying to fight with him because I don't know these settings that well. It's giving us a low angle shot, so we're going to take it. We got some hits on him because we've got quite a bit of spread at that distance with these guns. I didn't even fire my main gun. But he's gonna get away from us unless he starts turning like that. Since he's turning, we can stick with him. He's an energy fighter, we're a turn fighter. He's a lot faster than us and he's gonna regain his energy a lot better. This makes me miss the MiG quite a bit. We can take a... Nope. Need to keep an eye on my coordination indicator. It's a little bit more up front and easy to use in this aircraft compared to the MiG. Try to keep it in our view. Stay with him. We're slowly closing the distance. We might get another lineup for a shot, or we might just out-endurance his aircraft. I know maneuver kills and killing his aircraft with just time is not the most interesting thing, but I consider those completely valid options. I really wish this game would give us an option of basically kind of upgrading the aircraft to a later war version, because there are later versions of the P-39 that don't have manuals which specify such restrictive engine limits, and the devs all go based off of manual engine limits. The P-51 in this game has an Allison engine option and then a Merlin engine option for the same variant, and I'd like them to do the same here. So we get an Allison V12 option, and then we get a late war Allison V12 option, which should significantly boost the performance of this aircraft. And on some servers that have plane rotations, that should let the aircraft stay competitive later into the war. And I don't think we're really going to catch up with this guy, so let's just throw the engine into emergency mode and see what happens. We will probably murder our engine, and I'm checking again, and it looks like our engine radiator settings are all set from the from default, are pretty good settings in this aircraft. We might be able to close them a little bit. So this is kind of to be expected. The F2, while on paper is a little slower than us, that is, it's a little slower than our emergency mode. So if he chooses to disengage, there's not a whole lot we can do about that. Can fire some guns at him futilely. Oh, but he's turning, so we're going to close in on him a bit and try to take some more gunshots. Let's pull, pull, pull. I'm not lining my gunshot up too well. He's slowing down. He is a small and hard to hit target with this 37mm cannon. Oh, but we hit his wing and we took off a big chunk of something. I've been told that the P-39 is quite well favored as a kind of bomber intercepting aircraft. He's definitely going down. There's no way he's going to recover from that. Let's take a moment to play around a bit more with some of our throttle settings. I wonder if I can just leave it in 100% RPM and see what happens. So if I'm at 100% RPM, I have to throttle back way too much to actually maintain our engine settings. So I'm going to have to stick with about 60% and 60% RPM and about 75% throttle for continuous. Alright, so we'll complete the mission. Oh, and we had an F2 spawned in on us. Alright, so that mission time was 8 minutes. It's when I'm dogfighting, it's often pretty hard to tell how much time has passed. Case in point, the stream has been live for 50 minutes. But yeah, sometimes I get events where it's like, I think it's been 10 minutes between me shooting down 2 aircraft, and it's actually been just 1 minute. Alright, so since I think we're in a decent position, and just sitting around doing these might not be too fun. I'm gonna create a new campaign. This is just a quick campaign I was playing around with, so I deleted it. We'll create a new career. I think we want Battle of Stalingrad to get the P-39. We're gonna fly as Soviet Union. We'll unselect everything. P-40E is another aircraft I would like to play around with a bit more in campaigns, but it is even more of a hassle than the P-39. Where is P-39? Oh, I have to probably go to a later campaign in that case, so Battle of Kuban. This is probably going to be really painful, because we're going to be fighting some much later war aircraft, because it's 1943. Yeah, so there we go, P-39. But what I was saying with the P-39 versus the P-40, they both use the same engine. With the P-40E has more restrictive engine limits due to peacetime requirements. The P-40E, if you just go full throttle, you can just explode the engine immediately, and that is really dumb because it doesn't have a manifold pressure limiter. That's the variant that they specifically picked for this. The P-39, the worst case scenario is if you hammer your throttle back and forth a lot, you can actually break the linkage between the engine and the propeller, and then even though your engine still works, your propeller doesn't, and you're kind of screwed. All right, let's pick this 6th, whatever. No, we don't want that. We want 16th, or the 298th, or the 45th. So we're going to pick the one that is closest to the front lines, which I think is this 45th. Or no, 16th and 45th are the same. So we'll go with the lowest number, I guess. We'll start. The We'll command our unit from the beginning so that we can skip all those boring ground attack missions that nobody wants to see. Although maybe people want to see them. I think they're. I need more ground attack practice. I don't do it. We might do, I don't know, a ground attack or if I do play the P-40E, then that would be a good time to learn more ground attack because that was primarily used as a ground attacker. Its main armament is 6 50 cal machine guns, so it's got a lot of DACA. All right, so planning room, headquarters. We're just first day, nothing happens. Start a new day. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee. I'm still waking up. Oh, I'm going to hide our mission details because those we're probably not going to get as much of. So we've got escort attackers and escort attackers, which is gross. I don't want to do that. So you're going to take care and we're going to proceed. I'm here to shoot down bombers and nothing else. Well, and dogfight thingies. The escort attackers missions are particularly painful because you start out low speed and low altitude, and then you have to fight things that are diving on you, and it's just not much fun. Loading a new day. Got an additional 3 P-39s, and we got some more pilots. All right, we've got a free hunt. Let's take one more pilot for this free hunt. I'm gonna leave the configuration as default, and we'll see how that runs. Oh, there is another thing I meant to check on the P-39 that I'm gonna do while it's loading. Or maybe not, because it doesn't want to let me alt tab out while it's loading. I hope I didn't just kill this game. I might have. Oh, okay. It's done loading, so I'm going to check. What I'm going to check specifically is the 30-minute fuel load as stated by that table I was looking at earlier. So for a bit of a reference, US fighters tend to have longer legs than German and Russian fighters because obviously they had an early war fly across the English Channel to engage things. So, as a quick example, a MiG 3, um, yeah, a MiG 3 holds 480 liters, and 30% of that gives it 30 minutes of flight, roughly. A P-39 carries 454 liters, which is less, but that gives it a 40. That means it takes 47% of that for 30 minutes. Although what we're really talking about for longer distance ones would be like a P-51, which without drop tanks carries 1,000 liters of fuel, and it needs 17% of that fuel for a 30-minute flight. Okay, so if we're gonna fly for about 30 minutes, the P-39 needs 47%. I'm gonna take a bit more than that. I'm gonna take about 75% because if we get into 30 minutes of combat, we're gonna burn through that fuel really quick. Although, actually, maybe we should just try out about 60%. We'll stick with about 280 liters of fuel. Although we got some more weapons, so I think we're gonna bump it up to about 70%. If I am lucky, we'll spawn in closer to our objective, so we won't have to fly around for such a long time. But our flight back is going to be slow and sucky. Alright, let's take a look at the map to orient ourselves. So yeah, we're right here. So it's going to be about 8 minutes on 1x speed to get to this target. Well, we have a minute. I'm going to get my engine set up. So water radiators are open to 80%. We're going to close that down to about 50%. See what happens with that. I think we should be good because we're at 80% when we started and we're pretty low. I forgot to pick my skin. Oops. But you can kind of see on these aircraft, this skin, I kind of like it. It's got the American aircraft, like the Army Air Force symbols all painted over, which is kind of neat because these were Lend-Lease aircraft. I'm going to use a turn from the auto level to get us onto course. Oh, and my throttle, I'm going to actually bring that to match what the throttle was on mission initialization. We got 2 aircraft, friendlies, by their indicator color, flying up high. Can't tell what they are. Actually, it's 3 aircraft. This thing is already making me start to miss the MiG, where all of the engine control is just slam the throttle forward. Now, with the MiG campaign we're running, I'm worried it's getting a little boring. The vanilla campaigns are pretty interesting because you've got these front lines. They move a lot as you go through the day-to-day. And if you go campaign speed for quick, which I forgot to do, you'll be running like one mission every 5 days or so. And I kind of like that because maybe you are flying a mission every day, but you're not going to get encounters every day. And I like to not fly the missions where you don't get encounters. And so I can kind of pretend that I'm only playing the missions where something interesting happens. But then you also see the front lines start to move, and it feels like you're progressing a lot more compared to the Pat Wilson's campaign. But the Pat Wilson's campaign is really nice because it gives you a variety of targets, and there's a lot more that goes on. We've got 2 aircraft. We're on a free hunt, so we're going to go try to intercept those. And it looks like our AI already decided that they were going to do that without our permission, but, you know, what can we do? So we're in a bit of a bad position. We're climbing up to meet them. We're going to slam our throttle to just under emergency. We've got a pair of 109 G4s. G4s are, oh boy. But we're 3 on 2, so we might have the advantage in this. Where did they go? Where did they go? I'm blind. There we go. We got one there. Where's the other one? There's someone behind me. Who is that? That's our P-39 friendly. Where did the other one go? He's up there. And we got 3 other aircraft. I think that's the other friendly aircraft. Yep. Alright, so it's now 6 on 2, and these odds I like a lot more. Try to catch up with this 109. But we are super slow with that extra gun ammunition that we brought. So we've got a trio of Yak 1Bs intercepting these guys. They're looking like they're doing pretty well. Oh, let me actually use my rudder. Got a furball going on. I don't think we're going to get any shots on this guy. Although if he gets target fixated, we might. We don't have enough lead to take a high angle snapshot, so let's just come around. Where did he go? There he is. Get our sun shield up in case we need it. Looks like he is diving, so we'll try to chase after him. We're coming in too sharp. Ricardo is away, but we've got a straight back shot, so we're going to just spray some rounds in his direction. I don't think we hit any of those. I don't have recordings on, so we won't be able to look back and tell. But it's unlikely we did hit anything because he's about 600 kilometers away. The bullets tend to drop off their effectiveness a bit faster from aircraft, because while they do start with a higher initial velocity, they're going into an airflow. I need to get my radiators open because my engine's overheating. I don't know why my throttle wasn't at 100. Oh, gotta dodge this aircraft coming in above me. Engine mixture is in full rich, but I want it in auto rich. There we go. Tech chat wasn't updating it for some reason. Try to stick with this guy. Although we've got 2 other guys on him, so I'm going to try to break off before I interfere with their shots. Oh, but we would have had a good guns line up. Take a high angle. Nope, not over right. Try to follow him down a bit. Actually, I think he's about to crash. Yep. Our engine's now in emergency mode. Let's get it off of that. Get our engine set back up for continuous mode. Climb back up. Since we didn't really expend too much ammo, let's get ourselves back up in altitude. We've got tracers firing at something. That might be ground targets shooting at ground targets. But we're gonna go patrol the rest of this area that we were assigned. I'm gonna take another drink real quick. Alright, so we're going to fly to our next objective point. There are 3 airfields here. At this point I would expect that they're not occupied because there's enemy emplacements behind them. See one right off our right wing here. I don't see anything active down there. Don't see anything else flying up here. Oh, did I see something off the front, or is that dirt on my screen? I think it was just dirt on my screen. Check our engine temps again. They look fine. I think we're going to leave our radiators where they are at. Make a right turn. I forgot I didn't actually have auto level on, so I was trying to auto level turn. But we'll just turn on our own. Actually, we should hit this objective first. No one's coming up on our tail to murder us. No. We got some more beautiful clouds. I've said this a couple times before, but I am so excited for the new sky tech that this game is going to add in at some point. You spend so much time flying at high altitudes and above clouds in later aircraft that you don't really get to see the ground, and it's nice to have something pretty to look at while you're flying. Is that a railway hub down there? Yeah, it looks like it. Alright, let's move to our next objective point. I think we were too low to hit this one, but oh well. Alright, so the altimeter on this, the way it works is it's got 3 hands. It's got hundreds of feet as the long arm, thousands of feet as the medium arm, and then tens of thousands of feet as the small arm. Where are all the enemy aircraft? I thought there would have been more, but I think I didn't set density at the front line correctly. Because it's probably going to be low by default, and we want it as higher because it means that we're going to get more targets. Excuse me, I had to cough there, but I muted myself in time. Oh, we got a spread of 4 aircraft coming at us. We are probably at the disadvantage, so let's flight leader orders, cover me. They're not gonna pay attention to that, I guess, so I'm gonna have to engage if I want my wingmen to survive. So we'll hammer our engine into combat mode. We'll try to engage these aircraft. This is probably going to end really, really poorly for us. Because they have 1 more aircraft, and numbers is a pretty big advantage. These are G2s instead of G4s. I think that means they're just slightly lower performance. Pull hard, stick with this guy. Try to get a burst into him. It's too far away though. Try to get our engine RPMs up. He's climbing. We're not going to follow with him too easily. Let's break off because our ally's on him, and we'll try to get this guy who's flying on our allies. Come on, Deets. Fritz Deets. Oh god, game just stuttered. That's not good. I think we just lost somebody. Got one close by. Let's switch to him. Pulling too hard on my trigger. If I pull my trigger all the way back, it fires all the guns. Which is why you see that cannon firing when I'm not hitting the button for it. This is going to be a slaughter. Alright, our ally's leaking something. Let's try to flight leader orders, turn to base, and we will try to do the same. We gotta get on the right heading to return to base. Got 2 minutes at this engine power. I'm going to set my stopwatch. We are already going for, I don't know, 30 seconds. We'll try to keep that down. Keep an eye on my engine temps. They look fine at the moment. We're putting distance between us and that G2, which is good. Full rich emergency mixture, I guess. It wants us to set that on. It's telling us to adjust our mixture. We got 1 on our tail. He is very slowly catching up. So as soon as our boost dies, we're gonna run into problems. Alright, now we gotta bring back our prop RPM to combat mode. So we're about to pass our combat mode allotment, or emergency mode timer. We did put some good distance between him and us. He was at 2.10. He's now at 2.4. Our prop's slowly dropping back in RPM. And reduce throttle to bring that back faster. Get our mixture back into auto rich. Yeah, he's gaining on us now. We've crossed over to friendly territory. But it's a long way back home. At the very least, if we get stuck in a dogfight with this guy, there's only one of them. Sorry, I've got a tickle in the back of my throat, which is making it a bit hard to speak. Let me pause and take a drink. Now, if he gets too close, we have an option of trying to engage with him in some BFM maneuvers. We'll try to turn with him, tackle him a bit, and then maybe get a head-on pass. Ideally, one where he's coming up and we're going down. And then that will give us some time to have some separation and escape. He's really getting close to us now. Alright, we're gonna try to pull up since he's so close to us. And we died. Yeah. Yeah, the P-39, while it's not an awful aircraft, it really doesn't do well in these campaigns because it's fighting against a whole bunch of late war aircraft. Let me pull up some more info on that. Pulling up that table. I'm filtering it out. I'll switch over in a second. I just completely blanked on what the heck the name of our aircraft was for a second there. All right, so here we go. You can see we're fighting against G2s and G4s. This is what we just encountered. The P-39 is a Kuban aircraft. So is the G4. The G2 is a Stalingrad aircraft. We get, introduction dates. They're all pretty similar-ish. And we can see that BNE, pretty similar, 850, 840. Max speed at 3,000 is about 590, 580, 579. So we're pretty close in speed with the G4 at about 3,000 altitude. But at 1K, they're a bit faster than us. Like they're about 10 kilometers an hour faster than us. And we were bringing a fairly hefty load of guns and ammo. So that slowed us down. Climb rate at sea level, 21, 20, 16. So we're 5 meters per second slower than them about at sea level. And then the gap grows as we get higher in altitude because their engine performance exceeds ours. Sea level turn rate, we can outturn a G2 barely. And barely is not enough for somebody who's not familiar with the aircraft to perform well, because the AI are basically thousands of hours in their aircraft. So they can turn with optimal performance most of the time. And then we do have a lower wing load. So the P-39 is not a good match for most of these aircraft that we're going to have to fight. We'll hide that, transition back. We'll see if we... I think because my throat's making me want to cough, I'm going to end here because trying to speak too much is really murdering my throat. So thanks everyone for watching. Hopefully I'll be better for a stream tomorrow. We'll play more. I don't know if we're going to do more E39 or if we're going to go back to MiGs. I'll figure that out by then. And then we are going to go raid someone. Let's figure out who we're going to raid. Kuromi is the demonic sheep VTuber. She's funny gamer sheep. She's doing a subathon for Valentine's Day. I'm gonna send us to raid her. So thanks everyone for watching. I hope you enjoy her stream that I'm sending you to, and I hopefully will see you tomorrow for another IL-2 stream.